Lori, Karen, and Sharon, thank you. Mitch's friends from childhood and medical school, John Smith, Dr. Julia Barbarisi, and Michael Harrod.
It's probably not my place, but it would make me feel better if everyone stood up for a couple seconds and breathed. I think move around a little bit. I mean, if you wish, of course. If you want to remain seated, that's fine. I'll keep talking, you keep standing, that's perfectly acceptable. There are several of us here who went to elementary school with Mitchell, which says a lot about Mitch, and it also says a lot about the cohesion of the Jewish community in which we grew up, which extends even to non-Jews like myself. There were some bullies in our elementary school, as there probably were in most elementary schools in those days. And Mitchell's father, Sid, was one of the toughest guys that I ever met. And from his father, Mitchell undoubtedly inherited a bit of hot-headedness, but he also inherited, I came to learn, a fearlessness when the chips were down. From his mother, Bibi, Mitchell inherited a great generosity of spirit and a certain kind of sensitivity. So I think it was the combination of the sensitivity and the hot-headedness which fascinated the main bully in our school when he latched on to Mitch. Now, Mitchell grew to be a large man, but as a grade schooler, he was just average size for his age. And he put up with the bullying for a week or two, and then I guess he realized that this wasn't going to stop. And so he fought the bully, and with a combination of determination, fearlessness, and natural athletic ability, he soundly defeated him. And I still remember Mitchell rubbing the kid's face in the snow, saying, "You like that, huh? Do you like that?" A couple of auxiliary bullies also tried their luck with Mitch, and they suffered the same fate, although it may have been mud or dirt instead of snow, depending on what the weather provided. So I myself somehow miraculously flew below the radar of the bullies. But as a quiet, sensitive kid without much physical prowess, it was amazing and satisfying to watch Mitchell defeat the bullies. He took those same skills and he applied them to his study of gymnastics. And in high school, he went on to become the regional all-around champion. He led a team of 6 of us around the state to compete. And, you know, we had great role models in the older guys in the gymnastics program, Dale, Laurent, Adam, Wayne, 3 of whom are here today as well. At some point in high school, I realized that Mitchell believed in me and that I believed in him. I consider this to be the highest form of friendship. It's not just the result of, you know, having good social skills and knowing what to say when, but it's something more profound and more impacting. If you consider your relationships with Mitch, I suspect that many of you will conclude that he believed in you too. A little bit about our parents. Both sets of parents were very supportive, especially in high school. My mom and Mitch's mom were both good cooks, and being male adolescents, sometimes we would eat dinner at one of our houses, and then we would go over to the other one's house for a second dinner. Sid would lecture us on all kinds of topics, both mundane and esoteric, some of which I'm honestly just beginning to figure out now. When Mitch and Leslie were planning their wedding, I was asked to be the best man, somewhat to my surprise. I mean, I guess I was in the running, but, you know, Gentile, and so I asked Mitch about it, and he said, his answer was, well, duh, you're the least likely to lose the rings. As adults, we talked on the phone every month or so. His whole life, Mitch was afflicted with a kind of demonstrable aggravation. I mean, for most of us, frustration is kind of paralyzing until it erupts into anger. But for Mitchell, it was more of a slow boil. Frustration, outrage, indignation, they were like animating spirits to his physicality. And when I spoke, when we would speak on the phone, that demonstrable aggravation was almost palpable through the phone line somehow. Most of our phone calls consisted of him venting about something that happened to the hospital or somewhere else. But, you know, I never minded. Somehow Mitch had a way of venting that didn't burden the ventee, if you know what I mean. And it was more a form of entertainment. And those conversations usually left me feeling a strange combination of outrage and compassion, which, now that I think about it, pretty much embodies Mitchell. Lastly, I sometimes commune with the recently deceased a little. I mean, I don't think I really do. I think it's just my subconscious kind of bubbling up through the overlying cerebral cortex. But, you know, they show up in my dreams vividly sometimes, or I'll ask a question of them and see if I get an answer. And this week I was, standing in the shower and I was drenched in grief. And I said, Mitch, I don't know what to do. What do I do? And the answer that came was only 3 words. I heard a sigh in my mind, and then Mitchell's voice. It said, carry on, duh.
You know, it's really, really great to see so many people whose lives were touched by all the Weisses, and for taking time out of your lives, for traveling or driving or whatever, not just in this room, but I know this is being telecast everywhere, and they were truly a wonderful, wonderful family that will be missed by all of us. So my life has been blessed by Mitchell and Leslie and Hannah and Ari, truly blessed, 4 godly souls. Baruch Dayan Ha'emet. Mitch was my lifelong friend since 1st grade. We helped each other through tough times. We celebrated best times. Most of my conversations with Mitch were deeply personal and meaningful, and I will remember them always. We're here, we share stories, but we've all had deep and personal meaning with this family. As I began, I just have to reflect on something Debbie said, because I learned from Bibby last night. I was the one that took apart his walkie-talkie. Sorry. When Mitch and I were little kids, I remember Mitch and Debbie and Rhonda and their dog Rusty running around their beautiful colonial home in circles, and it was chaotic, and Sid was there usually yelling at Mitchell or Rusty. Rusty was like peeing on the floor. Bibby was making us a snack. It was chaotic, and it was beautiful, and it was family, and it's some of my fondest and oldest memories. In 1st grade, I remember playing hopscotch with Mitch. I just have to throw that out there for those that know Mitch. Like, picture Mitch playing hopscotch. It's kind of a disconnect. Building on something my friend John said, in 5th grade, I got pushed around a little bit in the schoolyard. But I also remember Mitch walking up and just stopped, you know? It was probably after he had pushed the kid's head in the snow, so people knew who Mitch was. He was the kind of friend that really had your back. One of my favorite stories of Mitch, I was in college and I had some surgery, and the day after I got out of the hospital, Mitch took me out to a movie. And it was the absolute most terrible movie ever made. I think David Bowie was it, Man Who Fell to Earth. And I had sutures, and Mitch starts making me laugh, as only Mitch can, and just ripping on the movie over and over. And I was in so much pain and laughter at the same time. I was crying and begging him to stop making me laugh, which of course he didn't. So he continued. I literally fell to my knees and crawled out of the movie theater in a mix of pain and hysterics as he followed me out, having that continue. When we got older, I had a tough breakup, and Mitch really wanted to help me and encouraged me to go skiing with him in Colorado, which we did. So at the top of the mountain, I don't remember exactly where it was, but at the top of the mountain, Mitch insisted that we go down some black diamond slope with moguls. Like moguls the size of Volkswagens moguls. And he was a little bit better skier than I was, but it was over both of our heads. And as people kind of swished past us, it took us about 4 hours to get down this one slope, and we were just cracking up all the way down. You all know Mitch was a doctor, and you've heard stories. He also was an inventor and a businessman. He had lots of ideas. He and I once started a very unsuccessful business selling humidors out of glass jars. I think we sold 3. And he had patents for medical devices. In my last conversation with Mitch on December 22nd, he told me about a new idea he had around lung treatment and how he wanted to patent it. Mitch also gave me great doctorly advice. One time I had some bad stomach cramps, and I remember exactly what he told me. He's very succinctly. He said, "Get in your car, drive to Walgreens, buy a New York Times, go home, and sit on the friggin' toilet." It's great doctorly advice. When my wife considered eye surgery, and I'm sure for those that know them through medical school, you might particularly appreciate this, Mitch told her to be careful because in med school, some med students, quote, love to torture people under anesthesia. So my wife promptly canceled her eye doctor appointment. And when I was diagnosed with a rare disease, Mitch read up on it, teased me about it, and somehow made everything better. He always made me laugh when I needed it most. And if I were to sum up Mitch in one word, it would be passion. Mitch was passionate about everything. His family, his work, his ideas, his friends, people he loved, people that drove him absolutely crazy, but he was always very passionate. And Mitch and I often talked about retiring and getting older, and how we both aspired to be those 2 old crotchety Muppets, the 2 that sat up in the balcony. Their names were Ellsworth and Statler. They were the 2 old guys that had cantankerous opinions and heckled the other Muppets. And those were about the extent of our high-minded aspirations. Mitch was my dearest friend, my doctor, my therapist, my inspiration, my brother. I'll miss you. I'll see you up in the balcony.
My name is Rich Van Meter, and I'm speaking with the approval of Julie. We were all med school buds, knew Leslie as well, of course, and I guess a couple things that I wanted to say. As the rabbi said at the beginning of today, words fail. And so I wanted to borrow some words and read you 2 quotes and explain kind of what they mean. So the first quote is from Harold Kushner, and he wrote, "God does not cause our misfortunes. Some are caused by bad luck, some are caused by bad people, and some are simply an inevitable consequence of our being human and being mortal, and living in a world of inflexible natural laws. The painful things that happen to us are not punishments for our misbehavior, nor are they in any way part of some grand design on God's part. Because the tragedy is not God's will, we need not feel hurt or betrayed when tragedy strikes. We can turn to him for help in overcoming it precisely because we can tell ourselves that God is as outraged by it as we are. The second is a quote by Maya Angelou. People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did. But they will never forget how you made them feel. And as all these wonderful people have spoken before me, a very real theme has emerged of the nature of the Weiss family, of their talent, their compassion and passion, and how they shared that with everyone in everything they did. They are amazing people, and the world is a worse place without them. Having said that, as we got together last night, and as I'm sure most of you did as well, reminisced and told stories and had laughs, it really occurred to us that that second quote is what we will come away from today with. Because even with Mitch's off-color jokes and cantankerous nature, and by the way, actually, he visited me one time and he did the same movie-destroying riffing during Evita, I think it was. My then girlfriend and now wife still says I can't watch that movie without thinking of how much we were laughing at it. And she really liked the music, so. But I think that that's what we need to remember, that Mitch and the whole family, they accepted you. They made you feel comfortable. They made you feel welcome. They made you feel like you were their best friend. And I don't think that we understand how hard that is to do. And that shows you what wonderful people they really were. And in all of our memories and telling stories, they will continue to live. Thank you very much for this opportunity.